So today we are going to discuss 5 important topics from social issues. Okay, so we will understand under it like like gender equality index. We will understand about domestic violence act. We will understand about protection of children from sexual offenses act, like that. Okay, so these topics are very important for this year's examination. Okay, so let us go forward to look into the topics. Okay, so these are the topics that we will be looking into today. Okay, the first topic is Global Gender Gap Report. Second topic is SDG Gender Index. Third topic that we will understand is Domestic Violence Act. Fourth topic is PCPNDT Act. PCPNDT stands for Preconception Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act. Okay, then POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act. So these are the things. Okay, that we are going to look into. Let us see the first topic for the day. Okay, first topic. So first topic that we are going to understand is Global Gender Gap Report. Okay, why this topic was in news? Because recently the World Economic Forum released Global Gender Gap Report 2020. Okay, so this Global Gender Gap Report was released by the World Economic Forum. So recently, the World Economic Forum released the Global Gender Gap Report 2020. Okay. So the thing is, in this context, let us understand about the World Economic Forum. Okay. So it was established in 1971 as a not-for-profit foundation and is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay. It is the first international organization for okay. So it is the international organization for public-private cooperation, and the forum engages the foremost political, business, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. Okay, so these are the things about World Economic Forum. Now let us understand about this particular report. Okay, which report? Global Gender Gap Report 2020. Okay, so it was first introduced in the year of 2006. Then the Global Gender Gap Report 2020 benchmarks 153 countries on their progress towards gender parity. Okay, on their progress towards gender parity across 4 thematic dimensions. What are those 4 thematic dimensions? They are: number 1, political empowerment; number 2, health and survival; number 3, educational attainment; number 4, economic participation and opportunity. Okay. In addition to these 4 thematic dimensions, okay, this year's report examines gender gap prospects in the profession of the future. Okay, this year's report examines gender gap prospects in the profession of the future. Then if we talk about performance of India, okay, India slipped 4 places to 112th rank and has closed 2/3 of its overall gender gap. Okay, so this is the thing. So India specific data is mentioned over here. So the rank of India has downgraded, gone down by 4 places. So other data you can read from the document once I share with you. Okay, so if we see like what are the performance of different countries worldwide. Okay, so if we talk about Iceland, okay, Iceland has topped globally with a score of 0.877. Then Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Nicaragua. These are the top five countries globally. And if we talk about in South Asian countries, okay, so India has ranked at 112th place. If we talk about Bangladesh, Bangladesh has topped. Okay, so Bangladesh tops the subcontinent. Okay, on gender equality. Bangladesh, then China, then Nepal, then Sri Lanka, and then comes the rank of India. So India has a score 0.668. Then if we talk about like what is this information given, so they talk about that 99.5 years time will be required to close the overall gender gap in scenario as assessed by the 2020 gender gap report. This is almost 10 years less than what measured in the last edition. Okay, so now they are saying that like about 99.5 years will be required globally to bridge the gender gap. Okay, and the right hand side, if you see into the right hand side, so these talks about the four indices, four subcategories that we have already covered. Okay, they are like political empowerment, health and survival, educational attainment, and economic participation and opportunity. So these are the sub index of the global gender gap report. Okay, these are the sub index, and it talks about how India ranked into these sub indexes. Okay, so India has ranked 18th place at political empowerment, 150th place at health and survival, 112th place at educational attainment. Okay, so 112, this coincides with overall ranking of India also. Okay, then economic participation and opportunity. So India has ranked at 149th place. So this is all about the global gender gap report of 2020 that was released by the World Economic Forum. Now let us talk about the SDG Gender Index. Okay, now we are going to understand about SDG Gender Index. So why this particular topic was in news? Because our new index, okay, it is a new index. Okay, it needs to be understood that it is a new index. The SDG Gender Index was launched to measure global gender equality. Okay, why it was launched? To measure global gender equality, ranked India at 95th among 129 countries. Okay, so India was ranked at 95th place among 129 countries globally. Okay, so this is the thing. Now, if we talk about, okay, so now about the SDG Gender Index. Okay, it has been developed by Equal Measures 2030. It has been developed by Equal Measures 2030, which is a joint effort of regional and global organizations, including African Women's Development and Communication Network, Asian Pacific Resources and Research Center for Women, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Plan International, and International Women's Health Coalition. Okay, so the thing is, this particular SDG Gender Index, it is a new index that has been released by Equal Measures, and Equal Measures in itself is a joint effort of various regional and global organizations. Those organizations has been highlighted over here using green color. You can simply look at them once I share the document with you. It includes 51 gender specific indicators across 14 of the 17 official sustainable development goals. So how many indexes does it cover? It includes 14 of the 17 sustainable development goals, okay, that cover aspects such as poverty, health, education, political representation, etc. The overall index in scores are based on a scale of 0 to 100. A score of 100 indicates the achievement of gender equality in relation to underlying indicators. And if we talk about key findings for India, okay, India is placed at 95th place out of 129 countries that have been ranked under the SDG Gender Index. So if we talk about key findings for India, India ranks towards the bottom of the Asia and the Pacific region, ranking 17th of the 23 Asia and Pacific countries covered by the index, and it scores 56.2, means that it falls in the very poor category. Okay, India's highest goal scores are on primary education, health, hunger and nutrition, and energy. Okay, its lowest goal scores are on proportion of seats held by women in national parliaments, partnership in the bottom 10 countries worldwide. Okay, so these are the information about this SDG Gender Index. Why it is in news? Because this is a relatively new index that has been launched by Equal Measures, which in itself is a joint effort of the regional and global organization. And they have given information how India was ranked, globally as well as Asia Pacific region. Okay, so that's all about the second topic. Now let us move to the third topic for the day, which is domestic violence. We are going to understand about domestic violence. Why this particular topic was in news, apart from the the issue which is mentioned over here, one more thing is that like during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was reported that the women's are facing, you know, double the number of cases of domestic violence as compared to normal situations. Okay, so during the COVID-19 you know, pandemic time, so what has happened, so women's globally are facing double the, you know, double the amount of domestic violence that they had faced earlier. So that's why also it was in news. So apart from this, why it was in news, because recently the Supreme Court held that even the brother-in-law, okay, even the brother-in-law has a liability to pay maintenance to a victim under the Domestic Violence Act if they had lived together under the same roof in a shared household as part of a joint family at any point of time. Okay, so according to the recent judgment from the Supreme Court of India, the Supreme Court of India has held that even the brother-in-law has the liability to pay maintenance to a victim under the Domestic Violence Act. Okay, this is the, you know, context in which it was in news. Now let us understand about this Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005. Okay, in short, it is also known as PWDVA. Okay, it is known as PWDVA. So the thing is the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. It was in news. So let us see, okay, details about this. So the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act enshrines principles of the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, okay, which India ratified in 1993. So the thing is the convention that has been mentioned over here, this convention has been ratified by India in the year of 1993. Okay, I'll read this convention once again for you. It is United Nations Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Okay, then let us see the key provisions of this particular Domestic Violence Act. What are the key provisions? Okay, so definition of the domestic violence. The act expands to include not just physical but also verbal, emotional, sexual, and economic violence. Okay, so the act expanded to include not just physical but also verbal, emotional, sexual, and economic violence. Okay, the law is broad, and the law is broad in its definition. Okay, so they talk about the domestic relationship includes married women, mothers, daughters, and sisters. So the thing is, it is not only like, you know, like couples. Domestic relationship includes married women, mothers, daughters, sisters, like all kind of relationships are included. Okay, so this particular law, which is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, gives a broader definition to the domestic relationship. Okay, this law also protects women in live-in relationships. Okay, so the thing is, this law also protects women in live-in relationships as well as family members, including mothers, grandmothers, etc. The act, however, excludes abuses pertaining to marital rape. Okay, so the thing is, this particular law does not take into account marital rape related concept. Means like in a marriage. So the thing is, if the husband happens to, you know, force the wife for any kind of, you know, like any kind of physical relationship, so that thing will not be considered as a marital rape thing under this Domestic Violence Act. Okay, then the protection against domestic violence. Okay, under this law, women can seek financial compensation and they can get maintenance from their abusers in case they are living apart. Okay, then it provides the right to secure housing also. It is a very important, you know, thing under this particular act. It provides the right to secure housing, that is right to reside in the matrimonial or shared household whether or not she has any title or right in the household. This right is secured by a residence order which is passed by a court. A magistrate can pass protection order under the act to ensure that the abuser doesn't contact or get close to the survivor. Okay, so if we talk about punishments under the Domestic Violence Act, okay, so punishment may range, you know, like of 1 year maximum imprisonment and 20,000 each or both to the offender. is mentioned. Okay, so under this act, a maximum punishment or imprisonment of 1 year can happen, or like up to 20,000 fine may be imposed. Then protection officer is also like mentioned in this act. It provides for appointment of protection officer and NGOs to help the women for medical examination, legal aid, and safe shelter. Okay. So the thing is exclusion of liability of the informant. Any person who has reason to believe that an act of domestic violence has been or is being or is likely to be committed may give information about it to the concerned protection officer. Okay, and that particular informer will be excluded from any kind of liability. Okay, so the thing is other important judgments are mentioned over here related to Domestic Violence Act of 2005. Then related laws are also mentioned over here. So in your free time, you can read it. Okay, related laws are the Dowry Prohibition Act. Okay, that is there. Then we have section 498 of the Indian Penal Code. These are the related laws with respect to, with reference to Domestic Violence Act of 2005. Now let us talk about the fourth topic for the day, which is PCPNDT Act. Okay, PCPNDT stands for Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Prohibition of Sex Selection Act of 1994. This is the full name of this particular act, PCPNDT. So let us understand why it was in use. Recently, the Supreme Court upheld the provision in the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Prohibition of Sex Selection Act of 1994, which criminalizes, okay, it criminalizes non-maintenance of medical records by obstetricians, like obstetricians and gynecologists, and suspends their medical licenses indefinitely. This is a very important thing. So recently, Supreme Court has upheld the provision of PCPNDT Act, which criminalizes medical professionals, okay, for their negligence or non-maintenance of records, okay, and it can also suspend their license indefinitely, like for the lifelong. For lifelong, their licenses can be suspended. Okay, so let us understand what do we mean by PCPNDT Act. Okay, so the main purpose of enacting PCPNDT Act 1994 has been to ban and use of sex selection techniques before or after conception. Okay, so like what is the main purpose? It wants to ban the use of sex selection techniques before or after conception. Then second thing is it prevents the misuse of prenatal diagnostic techniques for sex selective abortions. Okay, so under this law, all centers which have any equipment which can potentially detect sex of fetus, preconception or prenatal, have to be registered with the appropriate authorities. Okay, so the thing is any establishment, any medical establishment that has the potential to check the sex of a fetus, okay, before it takes birth, so that thing can be so they have to get their equipments registered with appropriate authorities. This is the thing. Then it prohibits advertisement in relation to such techniques for detection or determination of sex. The act and rules deal elaborately with the maintenance and preservation of proper records. Okay, so these are the things associated with this particular topic. Okay, PCPNDT Act. It means Preconception, Prenatal and Diagnostic Techniques Prohibition of Sex Selection Act. Once again, let us see why it was in news. The thing is, Supreme Court has upheld its provision that criminalizes non-maintenance of medical records by medical professionals. Okay, and this particular act may suspend their medical licenses permanently. Okay, for lifelong. So that's why it was in news. And what are the main purpose? Their main purpose has been enumerated over here, okay, for you. So you can simply read it, okay, once I share the document. Now let us talk about the last topic for the day, which is POCSO Act, okay. This is POCSO Act. So let us understand what is this POCSO Act, okay. So this act means like provision of the protection of children from sexual offenses act, okay. So Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. This is the full name of this particular act. So let us see why this particular act was in news. Okay, it is very important for us to understand why this particular act was in news. Recently, the Ministry of Law and Justice has, has started a scheme for setting up 123 fast-track special courts for rape and POCSO Act cases as part of the National Mission for Safety of Women. Okay, so Ministry of Law and Justice has started setting up of fast-track special courts for rape as well as for POCSO Act cases, and this is as like under the National Mission for Safety of Women. Okay, this is the thing. Now let us understand more on this particular news. There are 389 districts in the country where the so this is not the total number of districts in the country. This is the number of districts where the number of pending cases under POCSO Act exceeds 100. Okay, these many districts are there in the country where the number of POCSO Act cases exceeds 100. So that's why this particular thing was in news. Under the recent scheme, each of these districts will have one exclusive POCSO court which will be set up for 1 year. Okay, then if we talk about financing of the scheme, the financing of this scheme will be on the pattern of centrally sponsored scheme. 60% of the share is contributed by the central government and 40% by the state and union territories government. Okay, so it is a centrally sponsored scheme. Which scheme? National Mission for Safety of Women. Okay, the name of the scheme is National Mission for Safety of Women. It is a centrally sponsored scheme, and 60% of the share is contributed by the central government and 40% by the states and union territory government. Okay, now let us understand the provisions of the POCSO Act. Okay, provisions of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Okay, so the act defines a child as any person below 18 years of age. This is a very important information, that according to the POCSO Act, a child is defined as any person below the age of 18 years. But if we talk about other acts in India, so there are various acts that deal with children, but the age mentioned in those acts vary from one another. Okay, so age mentioned in those acts vary from one another. For instance, if we talk about the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, if we talk about Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986, under that particular act, the age of children is considered less than 14 years. Okay, under this POCSO Act, a children is considered as a children who is less than 18 years. Then if we talk about Juvenile Justice, okay, Care and Protection of Children's Act, so under that, the age of children is considered to be less than 16 years. Okay, and under Factories Act, a children is considered a person who is less than 15 years. So the thing is, there are various acts that deals with children in India, and we do not have a uniform definition when we talk about the age of children. So under the POCSO Act, a children is considered as a children below the age of 18 years. Under Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, it is a children is one who is less than 14 years of age. Under Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children's Act, a child is considered as a child who is less than 16 years of age. So the thing is, it is very important that you should be understanding that in India, there are various acts that are dealing with children. But the thing is, we do not have a uniform defined age for considering children. In each cases, a children is considered as a children, they have different age limits. Okay, so this is the thing. So now let us understand some provisions of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. The Act defines a child as any person below 18 years of age and regards the best interest and well-being of the child as being of paramount importance at every stage to ensure that healthy physical, okay, emotional, intellectual, and social development of the child. Okay, India being a party to the India is a party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is a very important information over here. I'll be highlighting it for you. Okay. So India is a party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, is also under legal obligation to protect its children from all forms of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. Okay. So it defines different forms of, sexual abuse, including penetrative and non-penetrative assault, as well as sexual harassment and pornography, and deems a sexual assault to be aggravated under certain circumstances, such as when the abused child is mentally ill, or when the abuse is committed by a person in position of trust or authority vis-a-vis the child, like the family member, police officer, teacher, or doctor. Okay. It also seeks to establish special courts for a speedy trial of such offences. The Act stipulates that a case of child sexual abuse must be disposed of within 1 year from the date of offenses reported. This is a very important information for this. Okay. So today we are discussing all the issues that are related to social issues. Okay. So like these are social issues or social justice related things. So you may expect at least one question from this particular area. Okay. So there are lot more topics, okay, that were in news. So I may be discussing them in the coming days. Okay. It also provides for relief and rehabilitation of the child as soon as the complaint is made. The special juvenile police unit or the local police are also required to report the matter to the child welfare committee within 24 hours of reporting the complaint for long-term rehabilitation of the child. Okay, so this is also an important information over here. Okay, so the thing is, it talks about that the special juvenile police unit or the local police are also required to report the matter to the child welfare committee within 24 hours of recording the complaint for the long-term rehabilitation of the child. It is gender neutral law. It is very important. It does not only talk about girl child, it is a gender neutral law. Okay, means, you know, like sexual offenses may be committed against like, you know, female child as well as male child. That's why it is a gender neutral law, wherein the law takes cognizance of sexual crimes committed against both girls and boys under the age of 18 years. Then it does not recognize consensual sexual acts among children or between a child and an adult. Prosecutes any person, including a child, for engaging in a sexual act with a child, irrespective of the letter's consent to it. Okay, this is a very important information, that it does not recognize consensual sexual acts. What it simply means, that the thing is, if a child is below the age of 18 years, in that case, okay, in that case, even if that particular child comes in, like, you know, physical contact, like in, you know, sexual acts with any person, the other person may be a child itself, the other person may be a male or like an adult person. In all the cases, if a sexual act has been committed against any child, even if it is a consensual thing, in that case also it will be considered as a, you know, as a offense under this particular act. It will be considered as an offense under this particular act. Okay, so I hope you understood its meaning. I will read this sentence to you once again. It does not recognize consensual sexual acts among children or between a child and an adult. Prosecutes any person, including a child, for engaging in a sexual act with a child, irrespective of whether the latter consented to it or not. Okay, so now, recently the Parliament passed the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2019 to enhance punishment of sexual offences against children with the provision of death penalty. This is a very important information once again. Okay, so the thing is, under the recently passed act, okay, so the thing is, there is a provision for death penalty also. Okay, recently the Parliament passed Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Amendment Act 2019 to enhance punishment for sexual offences against children with a provision of death penalty. Okay, there is a provision of death penalty also. So now let us see some related information under this thing. Okay, this is a very important article that was in news. You should just go through this particular topic multiple times to learn it, learn the highlighted things over here. Okay, so like if we talk about definition of child under different acts, so I have already talked about. Okay, under POCSO Act, a person is considered a child who is less than 18 years. Under Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, a person is considered as a child who is less than 14 years of age. Under Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015, a person is considered as a child who is less than of 16 years of age. Then under Factories Act 1948, a person is considered a child who is less than 15 years of age. And if we talk about globally, okay, so globally, laws on age of consent, many countries have 16 years or below that as the age of consent, and most of the American states, Europe, Japan, Canada, Australia, China, and Russia fall into this category. Okay, globally, many countries are there. Most of the countries have defined the age of a child to be a person who is less than of 16 years of age. But in India, under the POCSO Act, it is 18 years. Okay. Now let us talk about the other related information, which is Child Well-being Index. It was in news. Okay, this is a related news. It is not. It does not come directly under the POCSO Act that we have learned now. Okay, so the thing is, this particular topic is also important. Now let us understand. Recently, the Child Well-being Index was released by the World Vision India. Okay, it was released by World Vision India, which is an NGO, and IFMR lead, okay, which is a research institute in India. This course is calculated using 24 indicators that are divided into 3 categories. Okay, what are those 3 categories? Number 1 is healthy individual development. Number 2, positive relationships. Number 3, protective context. Okay, these are the 3 categories under the Child Well-being Index. Then Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Himachal Pradesh topped the index, while Meghalaya, Jharkhand, and Madhya Pradesh featured at the bottom. So Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Himachal Pradesh, these are the 3 states that have topped. Okay, and Meghalaya, Jharkhand, and Madhya Pradesh, these are the states that have performed at the bottom. Then among the union territories, Puducherry was best performing. Okay, this is an important information. Child Well-being Index, you should be learning about it. Okay, now let us understand the last connected issue with this, which is integrated child protection scheme. Okay, we are now going to understand about integrated child protection scheme. Okay, this particular scheme is a centrally sponsored scheme aimed at building a protective environment for children in different difficult circumstances, as well as other vulnerable children, through government civil society partnerships. Okay, it provides for setting up of district child protection societies. Okay, this is a very important information, that it provides for setting up of district child protection societies by the state governments or UT administrations in every district of the state. Okay, and responsibility of which includes identifying families and children at risk to prevent destitution of children. Then it aims to create database. And knowledge base for child protection services, including management information system and child tracking system in the country, for effective implementation and monitoring of child protection services. It provides financial resources to states or UT administrations for the effective implementation of Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. Okay, so this is all that we had to discuss today. So today we have understood 5 important topics. Okay, so I'm just browsing backward. So we have understood about Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Then we have understood about preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques, prohibition of sex